Ladies and gentlemen, I want to start with a question. Have you ever noticed that the people who talk the loudest often say the least? We live in a world that rewards noise, constant updates, nonstop opinions, always proving, always explaining. But what if I told you that the most powerful thing you can do is stay silent? Not forever, not in a way that suppresses your voice, but in a way that allows you to truly listen. You see, silence is not the absence of communication, it is the foundation of understanding. Think about the greatest leaders, the ones who inspire us. They don't talk just to fill space. They listen, they observe, they wait. And when they speak, their words carry weight. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't just wake up one morning and give the I have a dream speech. He spent years listening to the struggles of people, to the whispers of history, to the urgency of the moment. His silence before the speech made the speech matter. Silence isn't passive, it's active. It's in those quiet moments that we process, we learn, and we grow. Look at nature. The sun doesn't shout to rise, it just does. The river doesn't argue, it flows. A tree doesn't demand attention, it simply stands, and yet it becomes a home, a shade, a life source. Everything in nature moves without noise, without force, without resistance. When we embrace silence, we allow things to come naturally. Ideas form, people trust us, the right opportunities find us, not because we chase them, but because we created the space for them. Silence is the foundation of understanding. It is one of the most overlooked yet powerful tools in human connection, leadership, and personal growth. In a world that rewards quick responses, loud opinions, and constant engagement, the ability to pause, listen, and absorb is often mistaken for weakness. But in reality, it is a sign of deep intelligence and emotional maturity. When we listen, truly listen, we allow ourselves to understand beyond just words. We pick up on emotions, intentions, and nuances that are often lost in a rush to respond. Too often, we listen with the intent to reply rather than to comprehend. This habit causes misunderstandings, weakens relationships, and limits our ability to connect with people on a meaningful level. Silence, on the other hand, creates space for genuine understanding. It gives others the freedom to express themselves fully, without interruption, allowing them to feel heard and valued. Consider the leaders we admire most. They are not the ones who talk the most, nor are they the ones who dominate every conversation. They are the ones who listen first, who ask the right questions, and who take time before they respond. Think about a great mentor, teacher, or leader you respect. What made them impactful? Chances are they made you feel understood. They weren't just waiting for their turn to speak. They were present. That presence, that ability to be fully engaged in a conversation is only possible through silence. In our personal relationships, silence plays an equally important role. Often the people around us don't need solutions or immediate advice. They simply need to be heard. When a friend or loved one shares something personal, our instinct is to offer solutions or reassurance, but sometimes the most meaningful response is to say nothing, to simply be there, to listen without judgment, and to allow them to process their thoughts in their own time. Silence in these moments is not empty, it is full of support, empathy, and understanding. In professional settings, silence is a tool that separates great leaders from average ones. Meetings filled with people eager to speak can become unproductive noise, but the individuals who take a moment to absorb information, analyze different perspectives, and respond thoughtfully are the ones who earn trust and respect. They demonstrate wisdom not by how much they say, but by how much they understand. Silence gives them the ability to see beyond surface-level discussions and grasp the deeper layers of any situation. Beyond communication, silence also plays a crucial role in self-awareness and decision-making. When we are constantly surrounded by noise, whether external or internal, it becomes difficult to think clearly. In moments of silence, our minds have the space to reflect, to process experiences, and to gain insight. Some of the most creative ideas and breakthroughs happen not when we are talking, but when we allow ourselves to be still. Nature itself offers a perfect example of the power of silence. The most profound movements in the world do not announce themselves loudly. The sun does not make a sound as it rises, yet it changes everything. The ocean does not need to shout to prove its strength. The most impactful moments in life often happen in stillness, the pause before a deep realization, the quiet moment between two people who truly understand each other, the space in which ideas take shape before they are spoken into existence. This does not mean that words are unimportant. Communication is essential, but words should be used with intention, not just for the sake of filling silence. When we learn to embrace silence rather than fear it, we begin to see its value. We learn that silence is not empty, it is where real connection happens. It is where wisdom grows. It is the space between words that allows meaning to emerge. Those who master the art of silence do not withdraw from the world, they engage with it more fully. They observe, they absorb, and when they do speak, their words carry weight. They do not feel the need to prove themselves through excessive talking because they understand that true influence comes from understanding, not just expression. By embracing silence, we cultivate patience, we become better listeners, and we strengthen our relationships. We move from reacting to responding, from noise to meaning, and from hearing to truly understanding. Silence is often misunderstood. Many people associate it with passivity, a lack of confidence, or even weakness. In reality, silence is an active force, a tool that allows us to process, reflect, and make better decisions. It is not the absence of communication, it is the foundation of deeper understanding. It is in moments of silence that we gain clarity, recognize opportunities, and develop insights that would have otherwise been lost in the noise of constant talking. Think about a time when you faced an important decision. If you rushed into action without pausing to reflect, chances are you later wished you had taken more time to think it through. Silence is what gives us that time. It creates space for thought, allowing us to step back from the distractions and pressures around us. When we engage in silence intentionally, we begin to see things we may have missed before. The best solutions, the most creative ideas, and the clearest insights often emerge in moments of stillness, not in moments of chaos. The most effective leaders understand the power of silence. They know that constantly speaking is not the same as leading. A leader who listens before responding, who takes a moment to process information before making a decision, earns the trust of those around them. People respect leaders who think before they speak, who do not feel the need to fill every silence with words. In contrast, leaders who talk without thinking, who react impulsively instead of responding thoughtfully, often create confusion and distrust. Silence is also a tool for influence. Have you ever noticed how powerful a pause can be in a conversation? When someone makes a statement and allows a brief silence afterward, the words land more deeply. The listener has time to absorb the meaning, to reflect on what was said. In negotiations, silence is often used strategically. When one side presents an offer and then waits, the other side often feels compelled to fill the silence, sometimes revealing more than they intended. Silence creates space for others to think, to open up, and to engage on a deeper level. Beyond leadership and communication, silence is essential for personal growth. In today's world, we are constantly bombarded with noise. Social media notifications, news updates, conversations, and distractions. It can feel uncomfortable to sit in silence, to be alone with our thoughts, but that discomfort is often where growth happens. When we allow ourselves to embrace silence, we begin to understand ourselves better. We become more aware of our emotions, our motivations, and our goals. Silence forces us to confront what we may have been avoiding. It allows us to listen to our intuition, to recognize patterns in our thinking, and to gain a clearer sense of direction. Silence also strengthens relationships. In conversations, people often focus on what they are going to say next, rather than truly listening. But when we embrace silence, we become better listeners. We stop interrupting, stop rushing to respond, and instead we hear not just the words being said, but the emotions behind them. This kind of deep listening builds trust and strengthens connections. It shows people that we value what they have to say, that we are not just waiting for our turn to speak, but are genuinely engaged. One of the best examples of the power of silence comes from nature. If you observe the natural world, you will notice that the most significant changes happen quietly. The sun rises without a sound, yet it transforms the world. Trees grow without making noise, yet they become strong and resilient. The ocean moves in waves, powerful and steady, without the need for constant noise. In the same way, our personal growth, our leadership, and our relationships flourish when we allow silence to be a part of them. This does not mean that we should never speak. Communication is essential, but silence is not the opposite of speaking. It is what gives speaking its power. When we learn to embrace silence, we become more intentional with our words. We choose what we say more carefully, making our communication more meaningful. Instead of speaking to fill space, we speak to add value. The ability to sit in silence, to reflect before responding, and to listen with full attention is a skill that few people truly master. But those who do become better decision makers, stronger leaders, and more present individuals. They do not rush to react, they take the time to respond. They do not fear silence, they understand its value. In a world filled with constant noise, those who embrace silence gain an advantage. They see what others miss, they hear what others ignore, and when they do choose to speak, their words carry weight. Nature has a way of teaching us the most profound lessons without saying a word. It moves with an effortless rhythm, without force, without resistance, and yet it achieves everything it needs to. The sun does not announce its arrival, yet every morning it rises, spreading warmth and light. The rivers do not push or struggle, yet they carve through mountains and shape the land. The trees do not demand attention, yet they grow tall, providing shelter, oxygen, and beauty. The most powerful elements in nature do not make noise, they simply exist, and in their existence, they fulfill their purpose. This is a lesson in patience, trust, and natural flow. Human beings often feel the need to force things, forcing conversations, forcing results, forcing success. But when we look at nature, we realize that the most significant movements happen in silence. Growth does not require noise, it requires time. Progress does not need to be announced, it simply unfolds. There is a natural order to life, and when we stop resisting it, we begin to move with it instead of against it. Take water as an example. A river does not force itself forward, it flows. It adapts to the land, moves around obstacles, and yet, over time, it wears down even the hardest rocks. It does not fight, it persists. In life, we often think we must push harder, speak louder, or do more to make things happen. But true success comes when we learn to trust the process, to allow things to unfold naturally while maintaining steady movement, just like water. This same principle applies to our personal and professional lives. The most successful people are often those who do not rush, but instead trust that their efforts will bear fruit in time. They do not feel the need to constantly announce their progress because they know that real progress speaks for itself. The most impactful leaders are not the ones who talk the loudest, but the ones who lead by example through quiet strength and steady action. Consider the way trees grow. A seed does not become a tree overnight. It takes root in the darkness beneath the soil where no one can see its progress. It grows slowly, drawing nutrients from the earth, stretching toward the sunlight. There is no rush. It does not compare itself to the tree next to it. It simply grows at its own pace. And yet one day, without force, without noise, it stands tall and strong. Human growth follows the same pattern. When we plant the right seeds, whether in the form of learning, effort, or relationships, we must trust that growth will come in its own time. There is no need to rush or force it. The quiet work we do behind the scenes, the discipline we cultivate in silence, the skills we develop without seeking applause, these are the things that eventually lead to greatness. This perspective can also transform the way we handle challenges. When we encounter obstacles, our instinct is often to fight against them, to resist, to struggle. But nature teaches us another way. When the wind meets resistance, it moves around it. When water is blocked, it finds another path. When the seasons change, trees do not resist losing their leaves. They embrace the process because they know that change is necessary for growth. If we take this approach in our own lives, we will find that everything becomes easier. Instead of forcing conversations, we can learn to listen. Instead of demanding results immediately, we can focus on steady progress. Instead of struggling against change, we can embrace it, knowing that just as winter always turns to spring, every challenge will eventually pass. The idea that nature moves without noise also teaches us about presence. The most beautiful moments in life are often the quietest. Watching a sunrise, standing by the ocean, walking through a forest. These experiences remind us that we do not always need to be talking, explaining, or proving ourselves. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply be present, to observe, to take in the world around us without trying to control it. This is a shift in mindset. It requires us to let go of the belief that effort must always be loud to be effective. It teaches us that true power comes not from force, but from alignment, from moving with life instead of struggling against it. It shows us that we do not have to chase opportunities. When we are prepared, the right opportunities will come to us naturally. Nature has existed for billions of years without noise, without struggle, and without force. And yet, it has accomplished everything. If we learn to embrace this wisdom, to trust the process, to move with patience and intention, we too can achieve everything we are meant to. Without unnecessary noise, without force, just like the sun, the river, and the trees. Listening before speaking is one of the most valuable yet underrated skills a person can develop. In today's world, where conversations often turn into competitions of who can talk the most or the loudest, true listening has become rare. We live in an age where people are more interested in responding than understanding. Instead of absorbing what is being said, they are waiting for their turn to speak, preparing their next point while the other person is still talking. This habit leads to misunderstandings, weakens relationships, and creates shallow connections. However, those who take the time to listen before they speak build deeper trust, make better decisions, and communicate more effectively. True listening is not just about hearing words. It is about understanding the emotions, intentions, and meanings behind those words. When we truly listen, we put aside our own thoughts, judgments, and distractions to focus entirely on the speaker. We pay attention not only to what they are saying, but also to what they are not saying, the pauses, the tone, the body language. This level of attentiveness shows respect and signals to the other person that their words matter. In contrast, when we are impatiently waiting to talk or thinking about our response, we send the message that our own thoughts are more important than theirs. Some of the greatest leaders in history have been known for their ability to listen first and speak later. They understood that leadership is not about having all the answers, but about asking the right questions and truly understanding the people they serve. Abraham Lincoln, for example, was famous for his ability to sit quietly, absorbing all perspectives before making a decision. He knew that wisdom comes from listening, not from talking. Similarly, in business, great CEOs do not surround themselves with people just to tell them what they want to hear. They surround themselves with people whose opinions they value and listen before making important decisions. Listening first also strengthens personal relationships. Often, when someone shares their thoughts or feelings, they are not necessarily looking for a solution, they just want to be heard. But too often, people jump in with advice or opinions before the other person has even finished speaking. This can make the speaker feel dismissed or unheard, even if the listener had good intentions. A better approach is to pause, absorb, and only respond when necessary. Sometimes the best response is simply, "I hear you." This kind of active listening builds trust and deepens emotional connections. In professional settings, listening before speaking can be the difference between success and failure. Imagine being in a business negotiation. If you speak too soon, you might reveal too much or miss a critical detail. However, if you take the time to listen, you gain insight into the other person's priorities, concerns, and motivations. You can then craft a response that aligns with what they truly need rather than just pushing your own agenda. Skilled negotiators understand that silence can be a strategic tool. It creates space for the other person to speak more, often revealing valuable information. Listening also prevents misunderstandings and unnecessary conflicts. Many arguments arise not because people disagree, but because they have not taken the time to understand each other. When we listen carefully, we can identify common ground, clarify misinterpretations, and respond in a way that is constructive rather than reactive. In contrast, speaking without fully understanding the other person's perspective often escalates tensions and leads to poor communication. Another significant benefit of listening first is that it allows us to learn. Every person we meet knows something we don't. When we assume we already have all the answers, we close ourselves off from growth and new ideas. But when we approach conversations with curiosity instead of a need to dominate, we open the door to new perspectives, fresh insights, and valuable lessons. The most intelligent and successful individuals are not those who talk the most, but those who listen the best. This approach is also crucial in self-development. When we listen to feedback instead of becoming defensive, we gain valuable insights into how we can improve. When we listen to our own thoughts in moments of silence, we gain clarity on what truly matters to us. Listening is not just about external conversations, it is also about internal reflection. In a world filled with noise, listening is a superpower. It sets great leaders apart from average ones, builds stronger relationships, and leads to smarter decisions. It is a skill that requires patience, humility, and practice. But those who master it gain an advantage that few possess. They speak only when they have something valuable to say, and because they have listened first, their words carry more weight. True power is not in how much we talk, but in how well we understand before we do. Trusting the process is one of the hardest but most rewarding lessons in life. In a world that values speed, instant results, and immediate gratification, the idea of being patient and allowing things to unfold naturally can feel counterintuitive. However, some of the greatest successes, the most meaningful relationships, and the most fulfilling moments in life come not from forcing things, but from preparing ourselves and allowing the right opportunities to come in their own time. When we stop chasing and start trusting, we find that everything falls into place more smoothly than we ever could have imagined. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to control everything. They want results now, answers immediately, and success overnight. But life does not work that way. Just like a tree does not grow instantly from a seed, meaningful achievements require time, patience, and the right conditions. When we try to rush the process, we often end up frustrated, disappointed, or even making poor decisions that push us further away from our goals. But when we trust that our efforts will pay off in time, we develop a sense of peace and confidence that allows us to focus on what truly matters. Trusting the process does not mean sitting back and doing nothing. It means putting in the work, staying consistent, and believing that the right things will come when we are ready. Many people give up too soon because they do not see immediate results. They start a new habit, a new business, or a new skill and expect to see success right away. But real growth happens in the unseen moments. The times when no one is watching, when progress is slow, and when it feels like nothing is happening. The truth is, things are always happening beneath the surface, even if we cannot see them yet. A great example of this is the bamboo tree. When a bamboo seed is planted, nothing appears to happen for years. The seed is being watered, the soil is being cared for, but there is no visible growth. Then suddenly, after years of seeming inactivity, the bamboo tree shoots up rapidly, growing feet in just a few weeks. What was happening all those years? The roots were growing deep underground, building a strong foundation so that when the tree finally did grow, it could stand tall and strong. This is exactly how life works. Sometimes we do not see immediate results, but that does not mean growth is not happening. The same principle applies to relationships, careers, and personal development. People who force relationships often find themselves in situations that are not right for them. Those who try to rush their careers often burn out or make choices that do not align with their true purpose. But those who trust the process, who focus on becoming the best version of themselves rather than chasing results, often find that the right opportunities and people come into their lives at exactly the right time. There is also a deep sense of freedom that comes from trusting the process. When we stop obsessing over outcomes and instead focus on showing up, doing our best, and allowing things to unfold naturally, We experience less stress and more joy. We stop comparing ourselves to others because we realize that everyone has their own journey, their own timing. We stop fearing failure because we understand that setbacks are part of growth, not a reason to quit. The most successful people in the world have learned to trust the process. They did not achieve greatness overnight. They failed, they learned, they grew, and they stayed patient. They understood that persistence and preparation would eventually meet the right opportunity. Think about athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, or anyone who has reached the highest level in their field. Behind their success is years of unseen effort, moments of doubt, and a decision to keep going even when results were not immediate. Life has a way of giving us what we need at the right time. When we are prepared, the right opportunities appear. When we have developed the right mindset, the right people come into our lives. Trusting the process means understanding that things do not always happen on our timeline, but they happen when we are truly ready for them. It means letting go of the need to control every detail and instead focusing on steady progress. So instead of chasing, forcing, or rushing, focus on preparing. Put in the work, stay consistent, and trust that when the time is right, everything will fall into place. The universe has a way of aligning things perfectly, but only for those who have the patience to trust the process. In a world where people constantly seek validation, where social media rewards those who speak the loudest, and where everyone feels the need to prove themselves, the ability to let your work speak for itself is a rare and powerful skill. True impact does not come from making noise. It comes from consistent action, quiet dedication, and results that speak louder than words ever could. Those who focus on doing the work rather than seeking recognition are the ones who ultimately earn the deepest respect and achieve the greatest success. One of the biggest mistakes people make is feeling the need to constantly explain, defend, or promote themselves. They want to be recognized, so they talk about their plans, their achievements, and their goals. But real influence does not come from telling people how great you are. It comes from showing them through your actions. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are they did not win your respect by talking about their success. They earned it by demonstrating excellence through their work. History is full of examples of people who let their work do the talking. Consider Albert Einstein. He did not spend his time trying to convince the world of his genius. He let his discoveries and theories redefine science. Steve Jobs did not go around explaining why Apple was revolutionary. He simply built products so innovative that they spoke for themselves. In sports, the greatest athletes do not need to tell the world how talented they are. Everyone can see it in their performance. The most respected leaders do not talk about their leadership. They embody it through their actions, decisions, and integrity. One of the reasons why letting your work speak for itself is so powerful is because it builds trust. Words can be empty, but actions have weight. Anyone can say they are hardworking, honest, or skilled, but if their actions do not align with their words, those words mean nothing. When you consistently show up, do the work, and produce results without seeking constant validation, people take notice. They see that you are not just talking, you are proving yourself through action. Over time, this builds a reputation that no amount of self-promotion can match. This principle also applies in professional settings. Imagine two employees. One constantly tells their boss how valuable they are, while the other simply delivers outstanding work consistently. Who do you think earns more respect and trust? The one who lets their work do the talking. Employers, clients, and colleagues appreciate people who perform rather than just promise. In the long run, it is not those who speak the most who advance, it is those who deliver the most. Commitment is the value added. Letting your work speak for itself also cultivates humility. When you're focused on doing great work rather than seeking recognition, you develop a quiet confidence that does not need external validation. You stop worrying about proving yourself to others because you know that real success is not measured by how much attention you receive, but by the impact you create. This mindset not only makes you more effective, but also makes you more respected. People are drawn to those who are humble, yet excellent at what they do. There is also a deeper level of fulfillment in this approach. When your motivation comes from within rather than from the approval of others, you find greater satisfaction in your work. You are no longer dependent on praise or external recognition to feel accomplished. Instead, you take pride in the process, in the effort, and in the value you create. This is a much more sustainable and meaningful way to approach success. Another key benefit of letting your work speak for itself is that it allows you to stand out naturally. When you constantly talk about your achievements, people may tune you out. But when you focus on producing high quality work and consistently delivering results, people take notice on their own. This creates a stronger and more lasting impression than any words ever could. This is not to say that self-promotion is always bad. There are times when you need to advocate for yourself, share your accomplishments, or communicate your value. But the most effective way to do this is by ensuring that your work is so strong that it speaks for itself. When people already see the results of your efforts, you do not need to convince them of your worth. They already know. Ultimately, the most influential people are not the ones who constantly talk about their success, but the ones who focus on doing meaningful work. They build something real, something valuable, something undeniable. And when you do that, recognition, respect, and success will come naturally without the need for constant self-promotion.